Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for being here today for a special edition of Deborah Kobylt Live. So much has been going on in the news lately, and we watch it at home. We talk about it at home. So I thought I'd have somebody that I know very well from home come and sort some of the news out for us. Thank you so much for being here. John Kobylt, half of the John and Ken Show on KFI Radio, on iHeartRadio. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Now, look, so much has happened in this past week. 2 mass shootings. Jeffrey Epstein allegedly hangs himself. The 2020 race. People are still talking about who can beat Donald Trump. Just a lot. We've got some of the local stuff going on with the homeless crisis that never seems to be going away. People who need treatment who aren't getting it. It just goes on and on and on to the point where last night, what did I say? I can't watch the news anymore. It's because I want to do something, but there's nothing I can really do. Even reporting the news now, I feel like I can't do too much except just give my opinion. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Let's talk first about the 2020 election. Who's ahead right now? I know that Biden, even though he makes flubs every day, remains ahead, but Elizabeth Warren is close behind, right?
There's one poll out today that has her within 3 points. That's out of line with all the other polls, which have him up by double digits. So sometimes you get outlier polls where everything's scrambled. You have to wait and see. If you have 3 or 5 polls that all give you the same number, then that might give you a sense of what's going on. But even so, it's way, way early. And the polling gets jumbled by a news event or a debate, and then it tends to settle back. So
I think the recent events with Joe Biden and him not really knowing where he was in Texas and where he was in Ohio didn't serve him very well. Of course, Donald Trump has done the same thing with paradise and pleasure after the people perished up in California. I mean, what is it with these politicians? Don't they really know where they are?
I think too much is made of it. It's funny.
Oh, I don't think so.
I know it was funny. When he has the wrong states or he doesn't know when he was vice president, that's something to laugh at.
Oh, that's the guy you want in charge of your country.
Well,
Come on.
when you have to, if you were on their campaign schedule where you had to travel to 5 different states in a day and you're up 12 to 16 hours a day performing and it's hot and you've got people tugging at you all the time and you have to speak off the top of your head for hours and hours and hours, every once in a while you're gonna flub something. I'll tell you what, you're gonna say something.
Not when you've got mass shootings and people just died. You better know where you are. I'm just saying.
Obama once announced there were 57 states.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, it just happens.
I don't remember that one.
Yeah.
Look, I'm actually a fan of Biden. I think he's a distinguished man. I think he's got a lot of experience under him. I think he's a good man, and he's a wise choice. But, you know, whether remains fit for the job remains
He's not
uncertain.
that sharp. I mean, clearly he's not. Even before, if you looked at the way he spoke years ago, he certainly was more energetic and more focused. But he used to say nutty things all the time. And that's exactly who he is. He is authentic in that way, in the same way Trump is, which is what people to respond to. Even though they have their strange personalities, they're real personalities. If you remember Hillary, she would go into a Southern black church and suddenly speak in a Southern black accent.
Okay, sorry. I do the same thing. You've always told me we go to London and I've got an English accent.
I know, but that's weird.
Oh. Excuse me?
When you're running for president, that comes across as strange and
you just don't understand. I think you're relating so much to the people, you sort of become those people. I get it.
Or you're pandering to them.
No. I know when I'm in London and I suddenly start speaking in an English accent, I'm just
all right, well,
feeling like I belong there.
I don't know who else does that, but
Hillary Clinton.
You and Hillary, yeah.
But okay, so you've got Elizabeth Warren just a couple of points behind Joe Biden, according to that poll today. Who else are the front runners? I mean, Bernie remains somebody that teenagers.
He's kind of close. The rest of them have fallen way back. There's no one else in double digits. The debates have exposed that most of these people are clowns and duds. There's not too many sharp tools in this box.
Harris?
Nah, she's down to 8%. She's unlikable. The way she jumped on Joe Biden that time, that looked like an unfair, cheap shot.
Oh,
that wasn't deserved.
That turned me off immediately.
His career is the opposite of what she was trying to portray there, and that was unfair. And she was also wrong on the issue.
And I think it worked against her ultimately.
I think so.
I mean, I think there was another issue where her own father came out against her. Honestly,
she has weird reactions from like her dad. And also, she got her political start by being Willie Brown's girlfriend in San Francisco. He was the mayor at the time.
Doesn't mean she wasn't qualified. I just want to say
doesn't mean she was, though.
Okay.
But he actually said some critical things about her, which was surprising as well, since he was, the godfather of her career. So I think she rubs people badly over the long run.
But right now, can any of these people beat Donald Trump? What do you think? I know so much of the country doesn't like this guy. Go ahead.
Imagine Biden going up against Trump. What Trump's going to do with all Biden's odd comments and Biden's lack of energy.
Well, but Biden also comes off more dignified, whereas I think he could go right after Trump if he can remember, what he was going to say. Trump is so unpredictable. You never know in the middle of the night as he's going to the bathroom what he's going to say as he's tweeting. He's wildly unpredictable. I mean, we're in hard times right now. Look what's going on.
I am never bothered by any of his tweets.
Well,
I wake up in the morning and I look forward to that he wrote something incendiary that's going to send all the other people on Twitter and all the news media in a circle chasing their tail all day.
Well, can I just tell you something about the news media? Perhaps they shouldn't be in a circle chasing their tail. Perhaps all of us in the news media need to talk about what's important. So let's go to the next one. Assault weapons, okay? I don't know how anyone on either side, Democrats or Republicans, can possibly be in favor of assault weapons or should be a ban. I don't really care about the pockets from the NRA. Those people get shot at too. And I know they tried to have an assault weapons ban back in '94 and it didn't work. But that was in '94 before there was social media. Come on.
Here's the problem. Neither side wants to pass an assault weapons ban. Nobody is even seriously proposing that they're going to do it, especially this year during a presidential election. They're flat out not going to do it. They're going to do some paperwork stuff, maybe background checks.
Okay,
background checks doesn't track down a 20-year-old guy in his mother's basement who is angry and bitter
and who's ordering off the internet. I say that stuff you could just order it off the internet. There's no background check on the internet, nothing. But I saw a clip on the news about Donald Trump 100 times saying we're going to have background checks. I mean, this was going back a few years too, so there've never been any background checks.
No, I don't expect anything to get passed. If something gets passed, there's a small chance that it'd be something like background checks, something like these red flag laws, where if family members think that somebody has really gone nuts in his life and owns a bunch of guns, they can go to a judge and have the guns taken away, except that doesn't stop people from getting guns.
Look what happened back in Columbine, okay? Apparently the parents didn't know what these guys had under their bed. I don't know how you know that. My kid is always getting packages from Amazon, and I'm ripping them open. I mean, it's usually, stuff going to college, and they're like, stop it. That's what you got to do. A package comes in for your kid, you got to open it up and see what's going on.
You really think they were ordering guns?
No. But you get my point. You've got to be uber involved if you're suspecting anybody. I'm not talking about the kids. I'm just saying in general. Yeah. If you suspect something's going on,
a lot of parents don't care. No, they really don't care, or they're just they're not interested. They don't. I'm actually shocked because some of these guys come across as so crazy and so extreme in their views. I don't know how you wouldn't notice this in the house. But then maybe they're big and strong and the parents are intimidated and they're afraid to...
They're intimidated. They're afraid
to set them off.
It's abuse. They're being abused by their kids or their husbands because let's face it, I don't see any women going and doing this. It's usually always the men who are purchasing this stuff. I mean, clearly there's
men have the testosterone. That's why.
Well, there's a profile generally to these people and it's frightening. But when will the NRA finally decide to get behind this?
Never.
But why? Are they so deep in everybody's pockets?
They think that they have an absolute constitutional right to firearms. Yeah,
no.
Well, yeah, they do. Well, you're saying what they...
When that was passed a long time ago.
No, they believe they do.
Okay, but those were like pistols. They weren't assault weapons. Come on. That's the difference.
They're
abusing the amendment.
Even when you poll the American public, if there hasn't been a shooting last week, majority of the public does not want an assault weapons ban. Then something bad happens, and a slight majority does. But then after a few months or a few weeks, it goes back. The people in the South and the Midwest and the more rural areas outside the big
They
coastal
want their
cities.
assault weapons? Come on.
Those
Those are used in times of war. Not in times of killing a deer for your meat, which that's a whole nother story.
Well, part of it is there's such distrust in government. They believe that they want to be armed in case the government decides to start taking away land or rights. They really do.
They don't do that.
Well, they'll start talking about Germany. That the first thing Hitler did was to take away people's weapons, and then you can't respond. You could see what they do in China whenever there's protest, right? The Chinese citizens don't have weapons, and so if the government doesn't like your protest, they can come and just steamroll you.
It's bullshit reasoning. It's obvious why. They're deep into the pockets of all sides. And like I said earlier, their families are getting shot at too. And there needs to be something more sensible and more reasonable than background checks, which I don't think happen anyway. I know you're certainly not in favor of assault weapons. You don't even fire a pistol.
No, I'm not a gun guy.
Right.
I only fired a gun once in my life at a gun range as a stunt, and it was terrifying. So I don't identify with these people,
right,
but I can tell you their beliefs are sincere and deep and very widespread, and they look at the world far differently than people in the cities.
Look, we've discussed this at home. I think it takes women to really get up and fight this. Republican women, Democratic women, people on all sides, all colors, all everything, to stand up and say, not my kid. And I really do, because we are, by nature, nurturers. We don't really want to go out and kill people. And I think if we all stand up and say, this is it, we're fighting against this, no more. I mean, look, what did I tell you? I don't even want to go into a Target or a Costco. I'm afraid of some lunatic walking in the door. In fact, I think they're sold at Costco. Am I right? Somebody told me that. I don't know if that's true.
I know it's some of the big box stores. You used to be able to buy this stuff. Mm-hmm. Some of them have been shamed into not selling them anymore.
Yeah,
I don't remember what.
Yeah.
All
right, so let's get into Jeffrey Epstein. So many people knew about this guy, too. Please. The alleged suicide. Do we believe, John Kobylt, that Jeffrey Epstein took his own life or not?
My mind is open to anything. About the only thing I believe is that he's probably dead. And there's even 1/10 of 1% of me that questions whether he's really dead, because they could pull that as a hoax as well. It is impossible. There's so many things that went wrong willfully. Like, there is incompetence in the world. There's boobery in government.
You think?
Yeah.
There's boobery in government? Can I quote you on that?
Yeah. So it is possible that a guard would fall asleep. It is.
But there was more than one guard.
Well, that's the thing. He should never have been.
You have to nudge him and go, "Hey, Steve, wake up."
He should never have been taken out of suicide watch. And I've heard enough experts who say there is no reason in the world you would take a guy who just tried to commit suicide 2 or 3 weeks ago. It takes a while to get out of your suicide mind. You need a lot of counseling. You need time and rest. You need medication.
So he was taken out of suicide watch? Or he was just given some sheets while he was in suicide watch?
No, he was moved to a different cell. And he was supposed to have a cellmate. And they removed the cellmate a few hours before he did the deed.
If this is not a conspiracy, this just smells of a conspiracy. I could see people all over Hollywood right now writing this story. I mean, it's unbelievable. So the guards fall asleep. He's taken off suicide watch. His roommate is removed. Come on.
The guards are supposed to watch him every 30 minutes. And even that is too long a time. They didn't show up for hours and hours. Then we're told that, well, these guards fall asleep because they have to do 60 hours of overtime a week or some crazy
I can't
number.
fall asleep on my job. A truck driver can't. That's ridiculous.
Then they use clerks and teachers as substitute guards.
Oh, my God.
And this is the top jail for federal prisoners awaiting trial. It's not a federal prison, but it is a jail. It's a holding pattern until they're
Let's talk
tried.
about this. So it was like a really low bunk bed. So how was he able
I don't understand that part. They had in the Daily Mail today like a schematic of what the cell looks like, and the bunk bed is low. It was described in some news stories as there being a top bunk, but
kind of like the one we have at up at the lake.
Yeah,
it's a low bunk.
Whatever it is, it was low, and he was kneeling. Now I don't know how you hang yourself kneeling. That's why the way they try to explain this makes no sense to me. Not that I have any experience in how people hang themselves,
about-
but it just doesn't add up.
How about toxicology reports? Here's my theory. They temporarily drugged him, and then they went in and did the deed. I think they even did that like 3 weeks ago. I really do. I don't believe a guy like that has such a big ego.
There were a lot of powerful people who'd want him dead.
Right, that's what it is. Because you know what? Even 3 weeks ago, I don't think he did anything. I think they're temporarily drugging him. I think because his ego was so huge, he probably figured somehow he could get off. I just don't think those guys do themselves.
And he might have been able to mitigate the sentence because he has
right.
so much dirt. They say his island was wired completely for video. That everybody who came on the island engaged in any of the sex acts that's suspected, it's all cataloged somewhere.
So my question is all that stuff going to be mysteriously lost? Or there's going to be like a gaping hole in the middle of the videos? I'm sure of it.
Well,
all of a sudden that's going to happen.
They should have searched the island the day they arrested him. Instead, it went on several weeks, which gave his associates time to destroy all the evidence.
Here's what I think. I think whoever ordered his suicide, because that's what I believe happened, probably got rid of everything beforehand and now then made it look good by having the feds go in there and say, "Hey, we're on this." They're not going to find anything.
When you have $1 billion and you're about to be exposed with hours worth of videos of you sexually abusing young teenage girls, you're going to spend any amount of money it takes to get Epstein dead.
What's wrong with these monsters? And the people that would be riding on his plane, I believe they said Bill Clinton was on there 27 times. I don't have any proof of that either. But
well, it's off the logs. There is proof of it. He really was on
some of these stories with these men, it's just disgusting. And then his girlfriend, apparently, I think he had 2 girlfriends or more than that.
He had 4 women who did the procuring. And one of them, Ghislaine Maxwell, she drove around trailer parks in Florida looking for pretty girls who obviously had dead-end futures and lured them. Come, work for Jeffrey Epstein.
To
I'll
be
have
a sex
job
slave.
for you. Yeah, well, she didn't use that as part of the
Which
pitch.
girlfriend is missing?
Well, Maxwell was missing, and she was just discovered. She's living in a mansion with a new boyfriend in New England somewhere.
Oh.
Keeping a low profile.
Oh.
And she may be charged with crimes.
Well, if you're out there possibly getting young women to come and do these sex crimes with adult men, I would think so, but who knows? I mean, this one's very unpredictable. I don't know what to say.
He had a very powerful charisma, and people were lured in at the very top of all these professions and all
Because
these.
they want to be around the money. They want to see if they can get a part of it, a part of the fun. Didn't you tell me he had this enormous townhome in New York City, and there were these glamorous parties, and you said, "Oh, you might have enjoyed going when you were younger." I said, "No way! I could smell those guys a mile away. I don't like them."
A New York Times writer who interviewed him some years ago was trying to find the mansion, and it was in plain sight, but it was so big he thought it was a museum or an embassy. Like he didn't think it was a home. And so he walked past it and had to turn around and come back. So that's what he was living in.
How did he make his money?
It was, nobody knows.
You're a billionaire, and nobody even knows how you made it. What about his tax records?
Nobody knows anything about those tax
Just
records.
Just like Donald Trump. It's amazing to me. These guys, I had to pay a fortune this year in taxes, yet these guys, nobody knows about their tax returns, nothing. This guy's a billionaire living like this, and we can't even see his returns.
He might have been making money blackmailing all his associates.
Disgusting.
Because he would lure them in, and then they realize, oh my God, Epstein's got videos of me. Or maybe you had to pay, let's say, $100,000 a month or even $1 million a month to be part of his sex club. And he could have made money that way. He was making money selling women. He very likely was selling weapons, I think, just based on his background, connecting some dots. He was close friends with arms dealers. He always talked about being involved in intelligence.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, there's a lot of money in weapon trades. He could have been selling drugs, too.
What a sleazy man. I'm just sorry for the victims, and I just hope that they get some kind of information out so that they can live the rest of their lives peacefully. I really do. It's just a completely disgusting situation, and I'm appalled by it. I really am. I know you have to go in a few minutes to go across the street to do your own show, but locally, is anything being done about the terrible homeless crisis in our city in Los Angeles? You've got Eric Garcetti as mayor, Gavin Newsom. We've got health crisis here. It's epidemic homeless people. They need treatment. I've interviewed some people who were homeless on the streets before, who are enormously successful now in films, even blockbuster films, and they said it's treatment because these guys are just so strung out, and women, they can't find their way to the treatment. What's going on?
Garcetti doesn't really care. I mean,
I think he cares. He just doesn't know what to do. It's out of
then he
control.
should quit. And then he's overwhelmed by the job. He has no business being mayor. What you have to do, first of all, you have to stand up for the taxpayers, all the regular citizens that pay the bills here, and their neighborhoods should not be invaded by this.
Every neighborhood, it seems. I don't care what neighborhood.
And all the people who are vagrants, they are all committing crimes all day long. None of the crimes are enforced. It is a crime to defecate and urinate in public. It is a crime to inject heroin and snort meth in public. It's the broken windows theory. Back in the 1980s, there was a couple of professors who came up with this study. And they said, if you have a block where there's broken windows, the next thing you're going to have are bad guys loitering around. Then you're going to have graffiti. Then you're going to have drug sales. Then you're going to have cars being broken into. Then you're going to have good people moving out. And it all starts with the first broken window that's not fixed. And this was the study that Rudy Giuliani and the police commissioner, Bill Bratton in New York City, used in the 1990s to dramatically clean up New York City. And it stayed that way for 20 years under Giuliani and Bloomberg.
He was accused of being quite a bully, though, so come on.
And you need a bully.
Well,
I would love to have a bully.
Something?
You need somebody to say we're not putting up with this anymore.
Well, I agree that something needs to be done because it's not good for them. It's not healthy for them. Therefore, it's not healthy for the rest of the community. That's how I look at it. It's just something needs to be done to have a win-win for everyone. They say half of them would like to get off the streets but don't know how, and they don't want to go into the housing.
They're coming from all over the country now.
Right.
A smaller and smaller percentage every day are people from Los Angeles. These are everybody's problem child, from everywhere from Nebraska to Florida to Maine, South Carolina. They're all coming here because they hear in California you can spread out in a tent on the street, smoke pot all day, inject heroin, drink, and do your business, and nobody is going to interfere with your life.
What's the answer? We all know it's money. What's the answer? Do you force them into treatment? And then where do you get the money for treatment? It's very complicated.
You first of all, you start arresting them, and you refuse to allow them to do what they're doing in the streets.
There's no room for them in the prisons. You know that. Come on, that's what I mean.
No, what you did no. What is it's you harass them. The first thing is I don't want them in my neighborhood, in my region. I don't want them here. I don't have to take care of somebody's problem child from South Carolina. That's on the parents. So what you do is you have to say we'll give you a bus ticket back to your home and your family can take care of you, but it's not up to us. We got enough problems here. We have enough. Taxes are sky high. Costs are sky high. We can't start taking in all the lost flower children of America.
I have to tell you though, it's everywhere because we have friends who live everywhere. Pennsylvania, it doesn't matter, middle of the country, and they say it's growing to be an epidemic everywhere. It's the opioids.
Oh, the drugs. The drugs
people are deeply addicted, and they're addicted in California, and they're addicted in any other state. It's a growing issue. That's a whole nother problem. Then we've got the border issue. Where are the drugs coming in from? It's so complicated and so messed up. And then you've got families separated at the border. This is what I mean. This is why I can hardly watch the news. There's nothing I can do.
But the reason you have a lot of these problems is a lack of action by the authorities whose job it is to enforce the laws and enforce policies that discourages and mitigates this.
You're never going to have that as long as you have everyone on both sides, you know that, getting paid off.
We didn't have this homeless situation until about 3 years ago.
We have right. You're
right. And Giuliani and Bill Bratton reversed it in New York.
Well, they didn't have the opioid crisis that we do now. So we need to get to the underbelly of what's causing it and stop it there. You know, it's like if you have a busted tooth and you need a root canal, you got to cut it right at the root. Okay,
but every time Trump says, hey, we've got to build a wall, we have to seal off the border, he says all the drugs are coming in from Mexico. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And people don't want to do it. Well, you have to do it if you think the drug situation is that horrible. You have to seal off the transmission point.
That's where we disagree, because I do believe that there will be other ways of transmission points, and I also believe that there has to be humane ways.
That's the biggest way, though.
I'm not sure I agree with that, because I don't think the way we're doing it and handling it is humane whatsoever, and that's a whole nother conversation. Also about people going door to door and splitting up families. I didn't really want to get into that today because we don't have the time.
Yeah, let's
but
not.
that just adds to the problems going on in the news. When you turn on the news, it's like
all of that is enforcing existing law. Some of it's been on the books for 100 years, and it's what we always did. Obama deported 3 million people. 3 million people
Here's
he
the
deported,
difference.
and nobody complained.
Because he was humane about it.
No, because he was a Democrat. And the Democratic media never criticized him for it. Trump is actually deporting fewer people than Obama, but he gets criticized for it, and everything is exaggerated and distorted because he's Trump.
On that note, we're going to leave. However, would you like to end on perhaps some happy news? Anything going on?
I have no happy news.
You have no happy news.
No, it's not.
There must be something going on in our world, our country, our city, our state that's happy news. I would love to have the Happy Network. But
it's a sunny day.
It's a beautiful day here
in Southern
California.
It's a beautiful day at the beach. Yeah.
You know what I have to say that's happy news? Never give up. If you really feel like there's something that you can do to promote change, I always like to point out 100 years ago, we women weren't even allowed to vote because we're coming up on the 100th anniversary. But because people cared enough about it, they marched in the streets and they got enough interest, we were able to vote. Civil rights, the same thing. If something's really that important, I wouldn't give up because of politicians and greedy people. I just feel like we still have the right to get out there and make a change. That's what we're supposed to be about here in America. So that's my happy ending. How about that?
All right. That sounds like a nice happy ending.
Yeah, you know me. I always want a happy ending. So thank you very much for joining us. I know you're very
thanks.
well read on both sides of all topics. So I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me.
Have a great show, the John and Ken Show. Weekdays from 2 to 6 on KFI Radio and also on the internet and everywhere else you can find it. YouTube, just pretty much everywhere. They cut you up into a podcast, so
yes.
Interesting
We're a stream,
show.
we're a podcast, we're a radio show.
Yeah, you've been doing it out here for what, 25 years?
27.
27 years in Los Angeles, the number 1 rated local talk show. That's hard to do.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. You should be in
It
the
has
hall.
been.
You absolutely should be in the Radio Hall of Fame. That's all I can say.
Oh, thanks.
Anyway, we'll end it on there. Thank you so much for being here. And everybody, thank you so much for joining us today for Deborah Kobylt Live. I hope that you like our program, follow our program. We are on YouTube, Facebook Live, Instagram, iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Twitter, and honestly, just about anywhere else that you watch and listen to your podcast. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.